Four. Welcome everyone to the Chicago Football Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Letizia. Follow me on Twitter at CFC Bears. Joined by my co-host, Luke O'Grady. Follow him on Twitter at Luke O'Grady. We just finished watching the Bears lose another close game to the Falcons, which seems to be a growing theme for the Bears, is losing games close with a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter and then just not coming up a little bit short. A lot of things to talk about today. I have a lot of thoughts about Luke Getsy in particular.
Yep.
But we haven't talked about it yet. We kind of just jumped on right now. So, Luke, curious to hear what your initial reactions to this game are.
Yeah, I don't know if I didn't. So what's funny is I didn't watch the game with sound just because I was at a buddy's place and I had it on a side screen with Red Zone going, and I had my thoughts. And then afterwards, I've told you before, I kind of like to stay off Twitter during the game. And afterwards, I read back on Twitter what everyone else was thinking, and there must have been like some kind of narrative going on like during the game that was like different than what I was like seeing with the game. So I don't know. I don't know if until that last drive when he took that trip onto his shoulder, I don't know if I thought he looked hurt, and I didn't. I definitely didn't have any moments where I was like, "Whoa!" Like he's choosing not to run, like versus other times for him. I think he's always kind of a run out of necessity guy, not out of choice. But
Right.
I didn't really nothing bothered me too much about the game. I think going into the fourth and even like the last 5 minutes or so, like it was kind of like, all right, like I don't really know if anybody's super impressed us today, but we're in a game, and it was just kind of a weird game. And then the play calling and what ended up occurring made it. I think everyone kind of left with a really bad taste in their mouth.
Yeah, I was watching the game on a stream, which is a little bit behind, so I also was trying to stay off Twitter a little bit. But yeah, after the Montgomery touchdown, there was a shot of him, which tied up the game. There was a shot of him on the sidelines,
Oh,
and he was
getting like tweaked up, yeah.
getting worked on his hamstrings. And that drive, he was making guys miss in the backfield, avoiding sacks, but he was purposely not scrambling. So I think he just based on those two things, I think it's fair to say that there was something going on with his hamstring. Maybe it wasn't like pulled. Maybe it just felt a little bit tight. And then after that first rushing attempt on the final drive, he clearly hurt his shoulder at that point. Yeah. That didn't look good. So yeah, the Luke Getsy play calling at the end, that was just absolutely awful. Not only the two quarterback runs with a quarterback who's a little bit banged up, but that's not even a good play call in that situation. That's not even like that was the right situation to call a design QB run. So it's kind of it was very confusing on why you would call that for multiple reasons. So that was extremely frustrating. And it's not just those two plays either. The whole play calling in the second half was pretty bad. And the Bears have not been outcoached in a lot of games this year, but I think it's safe to say that they were outcoached today.
Yeah,
they just seemed lethargic. The play calling was weird. And I don't know. Maybe it's because, Jenkins was out. They didn't really trust their offensive line. I don't know what it was, but it didn't seem like they were prepared for this game at all.
Play calling the entire fourth quarter was weird.
Yeah, it was just weird.
It was just too conservative, especially considering the last couple of weeks, like we've leaned on or seen a lot of success from the Justin Fields runs more, but to some extent, it really felt like the last couple of weeks, Getsy had gotten more aggressive and had kind of been willing to dial up the passes in those situations. There was a lot of second and long runs today. The run on first down on the last drive, like I could even find if you made me argue for it, I could understand. It's not a terrible choice there. A lot of the times the Bears run that power QB, that QB power story, and Fields gets untouched to the sideline, and then a 2-minute drill. It's not a terrible choice, but to run a QB like inside zone again afterwards, after we had taken like a commercial break because your quarterback looks like he just hurt his collarbone, was psycho.
Absolutely psycho.
I
agree. The first one,
malpractice.
Yeah, the first one I was like, oh, that was stupid, but
yeah,
whatever. We had to waste a timeout too, and that was just dumb. But then when he did it again, I absolutely lost it.
It was like, yo, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you trying to prove?
Yeah, it made absolutely no sense, especially since, like you said, it wasn't that he got up a little slow and went back to the huddle. They actually had to take a timeout, and there was a TV timeout. Plenty of time to talk to your quarterback and be like, and realize that he's injured and just not do that. So that was really interesting. The offensive line in general played awful. I think I talked about it. I gave her the stats in our pregame show about the Falcons. They are an awful pass rushing team. They get like 1.5 sacks a game is what they're averaging, which is like 31st in the league. And they had 4 or 5 sacks. They could have had more if Justin Fields wasn't elusive. They could have had 3 or 4 more. Like I tweeted it out. The Bears' offensive line is really bad, and it only looks competent at times because of Justin Fields making guys miss and doing things with his legs. So, man, they probably need 4 new offensive linemen next year.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in Braxton Jones as a true rookie. I think that he's shown enough that he deserves like the first kick at the cat going into training camp next season. I don't think you need to spend a huge amount of money to replace him. And I think that this line looks a lot better when their best player is playing because you lose Tevin Jenkins for the game, and now what was your best and strongest position on the offensive line, you could argue, is now maybe your worst, and that makes all the difference, and it showed today.
Yeah, and with Braxton Jones, I agree with you. I mean, he's shown some flashes, so I wouldn't say they shouldn't upgrade it. If they have an opportunity to upgrade the position, you do it. But if you go into next year with Braxton Jones with a full offseason of strength and conditioning, get stronger in his lower half, and he's maybe your worst offensive lineman, you might be able to get away with that. But when he's one of your probably stronger offensive linemen, it's not good. You can't have him be – you got to have good people around him in order to kind of hide his deficiencies. So yeah, they at minimum they need a center, left guard, right tackle in this offseason to sign it, and then you got Jenkins at right guard and maybe Braxton Jones at left tackle if they decided to replace him too. That I wouldn't argue, but I do think he has shown enough to kind of give him a chance to compete for a starting job next year at least.
If next year Tevin Jenkins, Braxton Jones, and Cody Whitehair were starting for the Bears, I'd be fine with that.
Whitehair's been bad since he came back from injury. I don't know if he's still here, but he has not been good. He was good at the beginning of the year. He looked like he was kind of bouncing back to his old self, and then since he's come back from injury, he has not looked the same. He has not looked good. But I don't know. And they saved some money by cutting him. Not that they need the money. They have plenty of money, but we'll see. I would be a little bit not disappointed, but I'd be surprised if Cody Whitehair is back next year.
Without a doubt, you still need to influx some talent along that line, no matter what.
Need young talent.
Someone like Elton Jenkins is a bunch of sense.
Elton Jenkins, yep.
Because he's shown he can do it at so many places, and it would kind of give you that freedom where it's like if you're going to be the guy that ends up being tackled, that's fine. If a tackle makes sense somewhere in the draft, and there's someone that finds themselves starting from the draft position, then he can kick in the guard and do that too. But I think today was I think if we find out that Justin Fields is really hurt, it's not the end of the world. It's his off-shoulder, collarbone. It's not gonna be the biggest deal, even if it requires surgery. It's bone stuff. It's not muscle stuff, so it's not something that should have any long-term repercussions. But by the same merit, it'd be nice to watch Justin Fields play the next 6 games, and I got his ass on every fantasy team I have.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't want to. Obviously, the Bears are so much more fun to watch when Justin Fields play.
If Trevor watching if it's Trevor.
I was gonna say if Trevor Siemian's starting, I'm gonna watch it, but it's gonna be I'm gonna be at that point. At that point, I'm rooting for loss.
Full tank
at that point. But at the same time, with Justin Fields, even if if he doesn't need surgery or anything on his collarbone, fingers crossed. If he's just a little banged up, sit him for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
for 2 weeks. What? You got the bye then.
Yeah.
And then you get the bye, and then you got 4 games out of the year. I'd be perfectly okay with that.
It's a shame because
I know.
So his trainer tweeted out by the looks of it, and the way he rolled up, and by how the measure of what it looked like the pain tolerance was. It's probably what he said is an AC, a sprain, which would be he theoretically could play next week. It doesn't really have any risk of long term re-injury, but I think to some extent, to your point, if you shut him down for a week, we're playing the Jets next week. I actually kind of had that game circled because there was, Justin Fields was kind of going through the motions of beating all the quarterbacks that were in his draft class.
Mm-hmm.
So, I thought that this would be kind of a fun game to be able to beat the Jets, but by the same merit, it's not a game that he needs to see Justin Fields.
We don't need to see. The thing is, as much as Justin Fields has been progressing as a passer, and I do believe he is progressing as a passer. He made some really good throws today. As much as he has, the reason he's so great and amazing is his rushing ability. So and they do a lot of design QB runs as we mentioned. So if he has a bum shoulder, and you're gonna take out the running component from the game plan for next week, you might as well just sit him at that point.
Yeah,
like you don't want to risk him leaning his shoulder into a guy in a run play and causing further harm. Just sit him. It's fine. We're not winning anything this year. He's still going to progress. He's still going to do all this stuff. Save him for the last 4 games. I think that's where I'm leaning, is just sit him for the next 2 games and then reassess after that.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think it's to some extent.
It sucks because it's going to be rooting for losses, but
yeah, it's a commit to the tank, but by the same merit, like there are some generational players. I think at the start of this year, no one on earth thought there'd be a chance that we would be, have a Jalen Carter or a Will Anderson try.
Right. Cody here says they should sign Jenkins, as we mentioned, and maybe Conklin and McGlinchey. They certainly have the money. That's true. Yeah, I think that you're going to see 2 big acquisitions on the offensive line. I think Elgton Jenkins is going to be their number 1 target. Obviously, his familiarity with the Packers and Luke Getsy. The Packers might tag him. I don't know, but if he's available, if Elgton Jenkins makes it to free agency, he'll be a Chicago Bear, is my guess.
Yeah,
I'd be surprised.
I actually think the Conklin too there is someone the Bears should really covet. If the Bears could walk away with Conklin and Jenkins, that is such a huge win, because then you can basically go into the draft as a just best player available.
Yeah, and there's some really good offensive linemen and offensive tackles, especially in the draft too. I spent the last couple weeks exclusively looking at left tackles, right tackles, and there's some guys that are really like this. The Olu Fashanu from Penn State, who looks really good. Man. Peter Skronsky, I think he's a guard, but he looks pretty good. Yeah. Paris Johnson, Darnell Wright, all these guys. So we'll do a draft podcast coming pretty soon. We can probably do one soon here because it's going to be all eyes towards the offseason at this point.
Yeah, there's going to be, just thinking forward, there's going to be such a big influx of talent onto this Bears team next year. It's going to be, I don't know if I don't think Bears fans even really realize how, starved they're going to be for the 2023 season come, April. Once they have an idea of what that team is going to look like, they're going to,
it's going to be night and day from what we see now. And I think people realize that most smart Bears fans realize, the talent on this roster is just not there outside of Justin Fields and a few other guys.
Yep.
But I think even still, once we get on the field next year with a whole influx of talent, we're going to look back at this season and be like, oh my God, I can't believe Justin Fields did what he did with those scrubs around him, because it's going to be night and day what we see. So, yeah, I'm already looking forward to the offseason. I know a lot of people are, but it's going to be a really interesting stuff. It's going to be a make or break offseason for the Bears. Not only do they have to bring in that talent and spend that money and use those draft picks, but they have to hit on them. They can't, take a guy who, maybe is a few years away from competing. They need to maximize their window. They got to take guys who can in the draft, who can start right away, and they need to sign guys to free agency who are going to be available and not get injured.
Poles just needs to approach it probably similarly to the way he did this draft, and that do a good enough job in free agency where there aren't any obvious enough holes where you have to reach for need, as opposed to, and just let the board fall to you. Hopefully, if you're actually picking in the top 3 or 4, you're going to have someone that's desperate to go get themselves a quarterback, and you can kick back to maybe something like 9 or 10 and pick up a 2nd or a 3rd or something. Maybe in a 1st next year.
Here's an interesting one. I was literally just doing, before we jumped on here, I was just waiting around, and I was doing a mock draft, using those mock draft simulators.
Yeah.
And we had the fourth overall pick, and the Packers offered me a trade. I know. But listen to this. It was pick 11 to 4, so you moved on to 11. They gave me, I forget exactly what they gave me, but they gave me their 2nd, their 3rd this year, and their 1st and 2nd next year to move up that. And I took it.
Oh my God. You take that in a heartbeat.
That is a haul. I know it sucks because you're basically giving the Packers a quarterback, either CJ Stroud or Young or whoever they take. You're giving the Packers their quarterback of the future, but that is so much that they're giving up. If that situation popped up, that'd be hard to deny. Because if they're willing to give up that much, and this is all hypothetical, and I'm just doing a mock draft simulator, but if they're willing to give up that much to move up in the draft like that, they're going to find someone else to do it with. So might as well be the Bears who take advantage of it. Is the way I look at it.
No, I know what you mean. I think it'll be fun.
It'll be the last couple of years, Khalil Mack, and now Justin Fields. Like, we really have been depraved of first round picks for a long time, and going into the draft last year, polls turned something like 5 or 6 picks into something like 12 picks. So with the draft capital that he has now, man, I'm really excited to see. I think it'll be another really, really good influx of young talent onto the team. And again, it's one of those things where if he does a good enough job kind of filling the holes in free agency, he can afford to just take a bunch of shots at positions of need in the draft.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's for sure. Definitely true. So in terms of this game today, I think Fields did have probably not as good of a game as he had the last couple of weeks, but I think he still played well. The one that stands out is obviously that deep shot to Mooney in the
that hurt.
First or second quarter, early in the game.
Game's kind of over there, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, that was just, you got to make those throws, unfortunately. That was really the only one thing he missed. Besides that play, I think every throw was pretty much spot on. He made a lot of things happen with his legs to get first downs. He also made a lot of things happen just to avoid sacks and then kept his eyes downfield. He did that a couple times, especially on that one touchdown drive.
Yeah.
So that was really nice to see.
Cole Kmet had probably the best catch the Bears had, and
yes, that was an incredible catch.
Like, it was really good. How it stuck as soon as it hit his hand. The way he corralled it, like, through the hit. I mean,
while he was getting hit.
That's a career highlight. You'll see that.
That is correct. That's catch of the year. The only one I could think of for the Bears, at least, that like rivals it, is that Mooney catch early in the year. I forget what team that was against, but it was those two catches are 1A, 1B in catch of the year for the Bears.
Yeah. So actually, let me take back my comment. Kmet had a nice game.
He did have a nice game. He's coming along a little bit, but more than I think even his biggest fans thought so. So it's nice to see other people kind of stepping up too. Kmet's definitely been that guy who stepped up.
Yeah, I mean, not the. I don't think it's the game that we wanted. I think grand scheme, not the biggest deal. I don't think we have to really worry about like how this long term affects Justin Fields. It might be annoying that we might really just see something like a Trevor Siemian Bears team the next week or so, maybe for the next 3 weeks if we take it to the buys, which would be, is what it is. But by the same merit, if we do that, I would imagine we're not winning any games doing that. And who knows, man? Drop a couple more games in a row, and this team may move themselves into a top 1 or 2 pick. And if you have that top 1 or 2 pick and you don't need a quarterback, you pretty much have the green light to turn that pick into 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we're 3-8 right now. If let's say Trevor Siemian does start the next 2 games, because I think that is the right play for the Bears, just because you want to protect your investment in Fields. That's 2 losses. So you're 3-10 at that point, and then I don't have the schedule in front of me. I don't know what our last 4 games are, but I think you have one against the Vikings, one against the Lions,
one against the Bills on Christmas Eve.
That's a loss.
One against the Packers too, actually, in Chicago.
No, isn't the Packers game before the bye? It's the Eagles. Packers game is before the bye. It's the Eagles right after the bye.
Oh, yeah. Our bye is our bye's not until like the middle of December.
It's week 14. Yeah. Wow. So after the bye, so let's say we're 3-10. After the bye, you got the Eagles. That's probably a loss. You got the Bills. That's probably a loss. And then you got the Vikings. That's probably a loss. And the Lions, maybe you win that game. So best case scenario, you're looking at 4-13. That's a potential top 2 pick. I mean, the Texans pretty much have the number 1 locked up, but
yeah.
But it's probably good for the long term of the Bears. I tweeted this out, but the last couple of weeks we've had some good like tank wins where the offense plays well and you lose. This game felt more like of just a straight up loss where they just lost. It's not really a lot to feel great about. Fields made some plays, but he got injured. The play calling was rough, so this was just kind of a split.
It'll be important to hear as how that progresses. I think it'll probably be important to watch the Fields presser and just kind of see how or what the inclination is about his injury. But Getsy not Getsy. Eberflus kind of kept his cards close to his jacket on that one, and Fields didn't really make any comments about it. But if he's doing a presser, it can't be so bad.
Yeah. I doubt it's anything too serious, but I still think it's the wise to sit him the next 2 games. There's no reason to run him out. At least 1 game. At least let him sit 1 game. You don't want, especially with you have a lot of designed runs in the playbook. You're not going to run designed runs with a quarterback with a bum shoulder. So that takes half your playbook out of the equation. Just place Trevor Siemian at that point.
Yep.
Give him one game. Give him one game. It'll be fine.
I don't think there's any doubt that like Fields is the guy going forward next year. So if not 100%, no need.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of the other people who played, there was defense was played. I guess we could. The defense didn't play. Actually, the defense actually played better than they have in the last few weeks. I felt like they actually did make
Sanborn, honestly.
sense. Sanborn has.
I thought he played another nice game. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he did too. I think he's at least a rotation, at least a starting linebacker in this league, maybe even more. So that's good to see. Kyler Gordon, he made a nice play on that screen pass. I remember that one. But he did also have the very first touchdown of the game from the Falcons. He was just nowhere near Drake London for the touchdown there. Brisker forced a fumble. That was good to see.
Yeah.
So guys were playing well on defense. I just think individual guys on defense will play well from snap to snap, but I just don't think they're playing well as a unit.
Yeah.
But you'll get some flash plays every once in a while from a guy, but that's kind of what you expect. As we mentioned, the influx of talent for next year is coming. So, and a lot of those guys that are on defense right now won't be there.
And it's again, it was one of those, just let some of these players make these mistakes. If there's going to be mistakes, if you're going to make these mistakes, especially as someone like Kyler Gordon or Brisker or even Sanborn, imagining that maybe they could be those long-term pieces, this is the time to make those mistakes.
Yeah, for sure. And with Gordon, like he's definitely made some mistakes, but he's also made those flash plays, those instinctual downhill plays, and that is a really good indicator of a guy who just understands the game.
Yep.
And those are the guys that get better. So I know I knows for football exactly. So I know he's been a little bit rough this year, but I still have high hopes for him, at least to get to a solid starter. Maybe he's not a superstar, but he's going to be a solid starter for you. So I have hopes for him. Brisker looks pretty good. He's only going to get better too. Need to see a lot more pass rush though. A couple guys who will be here next year: Gibson, Dominic Robinson, Justin Jones. Neither of those guys really had any pass rush today, so we really need one of those guys at least to kind of step up.
Yeah,
and rush the passer a little bit better.
The thing that's nice is like aside from wide receiver, pretty much all the positions of need that the Bears should be going into the offseason with is actually fairly strong in the free agent pool. There's some really good, like 4-3 defensive tackles that I think make a lot of sense. There's some good linebacker help if that's what you're looking for. And then the offensive line talent going into free agency too. So, a lot of the places where the immediate need shouldn't be too hard for us to tackle. But today was just kind of, I think we've said it before. Like, I don't think that there'll be a handful of times the rest of this year, maybe 2 or 3 times where Fields will probably put up a stinker. He's still a second-year quarterback. He's not out of the woods as far as bad games go. I even had a funny little inclination that maybe today was going to be that. I don't think he played bad. He didn't, I don't think he played like a superstar, which is fine. But I don't know if today wasn't really it seemed, it was kind of a whatever game.
Yeah, he looked tired, to be honest. I think he was tired. You're not going to get a 60-yard rushing touchdown from your quarterback every game. We got spoiled to have 2 games back to back. That's going to be. There are going to be more games without that than games with it, even from a guy who's really good. So, but yeah, I think he didn't play bad for sure. Definitely did not play bad. I wouldn't say he played great. He had that one throw to Montgomery down the sideline though, and that broken play, which was just an absolute dime. Like you could not have walked up and handed it to him anybody. Yeah, that was outrageous.
Rolling out between him and the defender over he had a similar throw against the Ravens to Mooney last year where he threw it and he was like, oh, he's throwing it away, and then it landed in. You're like, what in the fuck?
Yeah. So that was crazy, and the throw to Kmet was good. It was a great catch by Kmet too, but that was a good throw. And then he just had that one that he missed to Mooney down the sideline early in the game. But besides that, I can't think of another throw that he missed.
He keeps hitting dudes in the head. That's for sure.
Yeah, that was weird. The first one, that was a defender jumping. That made sense. The second one where he just threw it right into Schofield's back of his head.
Schofield looked like he got shot.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell that was, but geez. That's something that he's got to get better at. It's becoming a theme now.
I would say he leads the league and just throw it in the head with the ball.
Yeah, 100%. got to lead the league in something. It's nice to lead the league in anything, even if it's not great.
Another 80 yards for him too, so he's probably still leading quarterbacks in rushing yards. But
Definitely.
yeah, I think it was it was kind of a whatever game. Nothing really to write home about. But nothing. I don't think that anything was exposed that we didn't kind of already know. Some of the players that we expected to be good played fairly all right. The players that we expected to be bad looked bad.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I think the most frustrating part is just that the Falcons just aren't a good team. So if there's ever a game to kind of like get everything going and rolling, this was probably it.
And if we win this game, we're tied for the wins and we share the tie break. So now, as far as like tank wins go.
Yep. For the long run, yeah. I mean, this is a team you had to lose to. It's not only you get the loss, but you give the Falcons a win. So for draft order, that was really huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything else? Do we miss anything?
I think that's it. I mean, it'll be good to go back and watch the film to see if maybe someone's more on the second review, because there was kind of a lot going on, and I'm not even really sure I remember like exactly how the whole game went out. It was almost a bit of a blur. But
yeah, honestly, it was just kind of a boring game, to be honest. Like not a whole lot happening.
As long as
we'll do the
as long as there's no funny business as far as the injuries that happened in this game.
Yeah, I mean that's the big news from this game is just waiting on the injury news from Justin Fields.
Yeah.
So that's really all there is. But yeah, we'll watch the game again, and we'll be we'll talk about maybe doing a podcast this week or something. But we'll watch the game, and we'll have at some point have more thoughts about this. Exactly. We'll definitely have thoughts about Justin Fields once there's Justin Fields news on his injury and everything like that. So make sure to stay tuned, follow, like, subscribe, all that bullshit. And then we'll be back probably sometime this week.
Yeah.
All right, bear down, everyone.
Cool. Bear down.